Hi everyone, I hope you're well. This is just a little video that's going to go over exactly what you need to do today and talk you through some of the key points in the lesson. Today we're looking at restorative justice as a form of punishment. Remember, we were talking last lesson about punishment and about recidivism, whether it reduces the rate of reoffending. So today we're going to look at restorative justice, and it'd be worth watching this video in the corner, which is a really interesting video about a guy who actually did end up killing someone in a pub fight and how he came to terms with it by using restorative justice basically and talking to the mother and father of the person that he'd killed. It's a really interesting video. It's quite a long watch. You don't need to watch all of it if you don't want to, but it's really interesting and it's really enlightening, so do give it a watch. So what I want you to think about today is, what do you think this punishment involves? Try and use the key terms: communicating, responsibility, offender, victim, distress, neutral environment. What types of crimes do you think are going to be committed that receive this punishment, and why is the punishment effective? Thinking again about operant conditioning and what we've learnt about operant conditioning. Pause the video and have a little think, and when you're done, move on to the next slide. Okay, so restorative justice is a punishment that involves the offender and the victim communicating with each other through letters or in person to discuss the crime and how it caused distress to the victim. And they tend to meet in a neutral environment to discuss, and the offender has a chance to take responsibility for their actions. Now, you've got to be really careful with restorative justice, because it's not just about them trying to come together to resolve it. It's really about the victim taking responsibility. And so the victim's got, the offender. So you've got to really know that the offender is in the right place to talk about it and admit that it was their fault basically for what happened, or at least take some responsibility for it. For example, the guy in the video, he didn't mean to kill him, but he did mean to hurt him, and that means he has to take responsibility for the fact that in the end that led to him dying later on. So it's all about making sure that both the victim and the person who committed the crime, the offender, is in a place where they're willing to accept the other person, and that it's not going to cause too much distress for either one of them. But it's a really good way of helping people to move on with their lives. And you can see from the video that these people have formed a really close relationship with each other, and actually now he's now changed his life around and is using his life for better now than he would have done if he just carried on the path that he was on. So it was really helpful for the guy in the video to just to talk to the people that he'd affected by doing his crime. So it can be any of these. For example, we know that murder is an example of this, but also if we're affecting our local community, then we're also likely to be asked to do this to realise the real impact that it's had on the community. So for example, like if you'd stolen something from the local church, it's a good opportunity for the church to explain like how that would have affected them. And then, why is the punishment effective? Well, it's effective because it's increasing the chance of them receiving a positive consequence for their actions. They feel better about themselves and can move on with their life. So it can help them to feel a lot better. Okay, I want you to have a go at these exam questions. What you should do first of all is highlight the question. Then I want you to decide whether the question is testing A1, 2 or 3, and remember it can be more than one. Write that down the side of your booklet. And then how do you think the answers should be structured? So the first one is, why might the court think that restorative justice would work in Mike's case? And the second one is, what other punishment could be appropriate for Mike? So because it's got Mike in, it means that it has to be an AO2 question. And if it's an AO2 question, it always has to include some knowledge as well. So the knowledge in this case is about restorative justice, and the knowledge of other punishments could be community service or prisons. So you might start your first one with your knowledge. So you're going to say restorative justice involves, and you're going to explain what it involves. And then in your second sentence, you're going to say what Mike might be asked to do. So how does restorative justice look? What will he be asked to do? So you're going to have your knowledge of restorative justice and your application to Mike. Secondly, your second one, you might say community service involves or prisons involve. And then your second sentence, you're going to say, for example, Mike might be asked to do. So what is he going to be asked to do? And again, we've got our knowledge of another punishment and then our application to Mike. Pause the video, have a go at writing it, and then have a look at my model answers afterwards. So, I've written that restorative justice involves the offender and the victim communicating with each other through letters or in-person discussion of the crime and how it causes distress to the victim. That's given me 1 mark for my knowledge of restorative justice. That's the bit in blue. Mike might be asked to meet with some people from the community bingo club and parent-toddler group so they can explain how the graffiti has affected them and he can realise what he's done and apologises. Please make sure that you've got 2 separate sentences for this. Your first sentence is explain what restorative justice is generally, and your second sentence is applying it to Mike. So what might he be asked to do specifically? The second question, you're going to say what other punishments would be appropriate. You could say community sentencing, or you could say prisons. Either is fine. I've written community sentencing. So I said community service involves voluntary or unpaid work in the community they have hurt from their crimes. For example, Mike might be asked to clean his graffiti off the walls or help out at the community centre once a week. I explained what it is and then linked it specifically to Mike. Okay, the last thing I want you to do is to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each of these. And where there is a percentage, like 30% here or 85% here, this is really important that you highlight it. So, prisons can be said to be effective because it removes the criminals from the public and therefore makes society safer. However, it does not totally prevent reoffending. This is important because it suggests that prisons reduce recidivism, however it may not be the only solution. Do you think it's a strength or a weakness? The answer is both. You've got a strength and a weakness in there. The strength is your first sentence here and your weakness is your second sentence here. Community sentencing gives criminals the opportunity to give something back for their crimes. However, some members of the public view community services as a soft option, as in they think that it's not it's not a good enough punishment, it's not harsh enough. With recidivism rates over 30%, it's not seen as a very effective form of punishment, i.e. 30% of people who take on community service go on to re-offend. This matters because it suggests that although it is an effective punishment for some, it's highly ineffective for a large amount of criminals, as it does not deter them from committing another crime. Deter means doesn't prevent them or stop them. Do we think it's a strength or a weakness? Again, it's a strength and a weakness. Our first sentence is our strength and our second sentence is our weakness. According to government research, restorative justice has high victim satisfaction rate, around 85%. So 85% of the time, victims feel a lot better after speaking to them. However, it can cause distress for both the offender and the victim as it involves personal contact. And what we mean by personal contact is people personally talking about something that's affected them. This is important because it shows that the punishment is effective in reducing rates of recidivism. However, we need to consider the needs of the victim when we do this, so as not to outweigh the benefits of the criminal to the emotional costs of the victim. I.e., we need to be sure that the victim comes out of this feeling better, and it's not just for the criminal to make his or her ego feel better. So again, it's a strength or a weakness. The first bit is the strength and the second bit is the weakness. So make sure that everything we've done today is filled out into your booklets. You need the table filled out on restorative justice, you need your exam questions filled out, and then you also need your evaluation done. So make sure you've done all of that, and next lesson we will move on and do the next part of our topic. Thank you very much.